Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Stock with Homeschool.today, and we're hosting this seminar right across Canada, coast to coast. It's 9:30 in Newfoundland right now. It's 5 p.m. in Victoria, BC, and many different times in between. So thank you for joining us. We're providing this as a free service to people who are considering homeschooling and want to know how to get started. So homeschool.today, what is it? Well, basically it's a website and an organization that's committed to informing you about homeschooling, answering your questions, and helping you get started. You know, we're living in an unusual time. COVID has changed things for many people, and I suspect many of the folks who are tuning in tonight are considering their options right now. What are they going to do? Are they going to send their kids back to the schools? Is homeschooling a viable option for you? You probably have a lot of questions if you're in that situation, and we hope that we can answer a lot of those tonight. The good news is you can do this, and we're gonna tell you how. We've got a great presenter tonight. Patty Marler is going to tell you how. We're going to take questions after Patty's presentation, and if you have a question, you can type it into the chat at any time, and we'll try to answer as many of those as we can throughout the evening. The question and answer period will take place after Patty's presentation, so if some of the questions can be answered directly on the chat, we may do that as well for the benefit of those who have very specific questions. All right, so in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Patty. Patty Marler is an experienced homeschool mom, and after more than 2 decades of homeschooling her children, she has a lot of experience to share, and she's done it all. She's also a homeschool leader. She's spent many years with the leadership team of the Alberta Home Education Association, including as its president, and many years as its government representative. So she's dealt with ministers of education and bureaucrats as well. So she knows homeschooling from top to bottom. Patty's going to tell us how to get started tonight. So I'm going to ask Patty to join us now. And we'll have to look for her camera here. Here we go. All right, Patty.
Hello.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. You're in Edmonton area, and if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about yourself, we'll look forward to hearing about that too.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for the introduction, Peter. I am very excited to be here tonight. It's just it's such an exciting opportunity to share with so many people who are considering homeschooling. I'm just going to pop up my PowerPoint presentation here. Get this going for everyone. There we go. Okay. So we have a series of 3 workshops that we're doing, and tonight's the first one, Getting Started Homeschooling. And this really lays the foundation for homeschooling. We're going to talk about some approaches, about where to go. I think there's a lot of people out there who are exploring homeschooling because of the situation that we're in with COVID. But there's also a lot of people who've been thinking about homeschooling for a long time. And this is a bit of an impetus that's helped you to make a choice to begin with this journey. And it is an absolutely wonderful journey, I can tell you that. I'm here on behalf of Homeschool.today, like Peter said. Very excited to have gone through the website. I hope that you get a chance to go through the website. It is filled with so much amazing information. I really hope that people take advantage of going through that website, our website, very well. This is my family. I could just kind of leave the photo here for all night, but I don't think any of you would appreciate that. But this is the fruit of more than 2 decades of homeschooling. One of the benefits of homeschooling, one of the great benefits of homeschooling is the wonderful relationships that you develop with your family and with your children. And so I really encourage you to take advantage of that. Peter, could you just hit mute all? I think there's a few people who have accidentally become unmuted.
Yes.
So the first question that I want to talk about a little bit is, does homeschooling work? The short answer to that is yes, it does. If we take a look at a little bit of research and take a look at some achievement test results, the green on this graph tells you that school educated, brick and mortar school educated students will average 50%, which is what we would expect. 50% is the average. Home educated students, who are in the orange, average 80% or better on standardized testing. Now, this is not just one test. These results have been repeated over and over and over again over decades. And it's quite astounding the academic difference, the academic excellence that is actually achieved in home education. So if you're wondering if it works, rest assured that it not only works as well as a public school, it works significantly better. In a recent study in 2011 by Sandra Martin Chang, here studying students in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, Ms. Chang said, although public school students we assessed were performed at or above levels for their ages, children who received structured homeschooling had superior test results compared to their peers. It's just consistent across the board. So now I want to address one of the most frequently asked questions, the question that I guess asked most often. Will my child be able to get into university? If your child is 6, I would encourage you to wait to apply for a couple years. However, if you go through homeschooling with your 6-year-old, you will be quite confident in knowing that universities not only accept students, that they actually seek out home educated students. A letter from Concordia University in 2013 said students who were admitted to Concordia under this new policy performed extraordinarily well. Okay, I'm just going to pause there for a minute. The year that this letter was written, the year before, many of us homeschoolers spoke with the administration at Concordia University and said, just try our kids, just try them out, see how they do, take some of them and see how they do. So they developed a homeschool student admission policy where they admitted students who many of them did, these students did not have an Alberta issued diploma, and they had admitted them based on a portfolio of work. And those students who were in their school averaged 3.64 out of 4, an average of an A-. I went to the awards night at that university that year, there were more home-educated students receiving awards from Concordia University that year than there were non-home educated students. They said when people asked the administration if homeschool students did well, they said, just come to our awards night and you will see that they do extraordinarily well. So yes, your 6-year-old can get into university, but maybe not yet. Hang on for a bit. Is homeschooling legal is another question that I'm often asked. And again, the short answer to that question is yes, it is legal across Canada. Peter, if we could again just click mute on.
Yes.
Thank you. There are, oops. It's important for you to understand the legal requirements. Every province administers homeschooling differently. Education is a jurisdiction of the provinces, not of the federal government. So each province develops their own laws and on education, thus has their own laws for home education. Homeschool Legal Defense Association offers a free overview of their homeschool forms and of the legislation. So no matter what province or territory you live in Canada, you can go to the website and get a free overview of your province or territory's legislation, regulation, policies, and the homeschool forms that you will be required to fill out. Members of HSLDA can also obtain a copy of those laws through the members' website. So I encourage you to go and be up to date because you really want to know and understand what is required in your province. So each province is going to have, do you need to register to homeschool? You will need to register to homeschool if you fall within the compulsory age of education. So let's take a look at this chart. So if you live in New Brunswick, you will be required to notify or notify of your intent to home educate or register your child if they are between the ages of 5 and 18. If you live in Saskatchewan, you're required to notify if your child is between the ages of 7 and 15. Now, typically, I think those ages are September 1st. But again, you'll want to check your own province's legislation to know for sure exactly if you are required to register your child. So many people who have kindergarten age students will say, well, can I register for homeschooling? You don't need to. There's no benefit, there's no advantage, and there's no reasoning behind notifying. In provinces that provide funding, if your child is 5, you will not receive the funding for your home education program. There are also deadlines for registering as a home educator. Again, check your legislation. Alberta does not have a registration deadline here, but if you are wanting to receive home education resource reimbursement, then there's a September 30th deadline for notifying for that. After that, you would not be eligible for any home education resource reimbursement. And some of the other provinces may be similar as well. I just want to go back here. In this time of COVID, there may be people within schools who are telling you that you must notify with your school board, that you have to, that you are required to do that. In some provinces, you do not have to go with your local school board. You can pick and choose. There is great monetary motivation for school boards to desire to have you notify or register directly with them as compared to another school or a home education specialist school board. So be informed, be aware that that is a very significant motivator for many schools right now. They would like to maintain their funding. And for many of them, if your children leave, some of that funding will leave as well. So I just wanted to let you know that little piece. Many governments across Canada will also offer supports for homeschooling. Some of them provide government funding for resource reimbursements. So say, for example, if you're going to purchase curriculum, you're going to purchase books, you're going to purchase supplies to help you with your home education, there is funding in some provinces to help offset that. Some provinces will allow you to attend school part-time. Some will allow you access to their curriculum documents and their resources, their school facilities, their extracurricular activities such as sports teams. And some will actually have specialized support services for home educators. Again, take a look at the website so you can look at what is available in your province specifically. Now, are you qualified to teach? Many parents have been told and encouraged to think that because you are not a teacher, you really are not qualified to teach your children. Well, I want to again look at some of the research on that and see what it actually says. If we look over here at this is the mother's education level and the student achievement. So if we look here, we have that average public school student who's scoring in the 50th percentile, which means they're right in the middle of the test results, which is what we would expect for school test results. You always have the middle persons in the middle. So the mean percentile is 50%. If you have a mother who has graduated college, her student on average will score in the 88th percentile, her home educated students. If you have a mother who has some education after their high school, then their average home educated student will score in the 84th. If you're a mom and you graduated high school, your child is likely to score 30 percentile points higher than the average public school student. And if you have less than a high school education, your child is likely to score 33 percentile points higher than the average public school student. So these results have been talked about a lot. Why do students do so well with parents who are educated in at such a vast level of completion? And a lot of the consensus is that parents are motivated to teach their children. Parents desire to see their children succeed. Parents know their children better than anyone else. Put all those things together and you end up with children who succeed and do very well in school. This chart over here looks at teacher certification, very similar results. If you're a teacher, your students aren't going to do are not going to do significantly better than parents who are not teachers. So do not feel like you cannot teach your child just because you don't have a teacher certificate, a diploma, even a high school diploma. You are the best suited person to teach your child or your children. So can you work and homeschool? Or can single parents homeschool their children? Well, the answer to this question really is the same for both questions. Homeschooling requires a commitment. It requires you to be committed to the education of your child. And you can work out the timing for that. You can work out how you're going to do that. But as long as you're committed to it, you can make it succeed. So if you work or if you are a single parent, you can succeed just like any other home educated parent. There are many support groups for single parents across the country. There are slightly fewer support groups for working parents, and I think that's mostly because working parents just don't have the time to attend, to go to those support groups. But where there is a will, there is a way. And you set out a plan, you desire to do it, you set things up, and you most certainly can work and homeschool, and you most certainly can homeschool if you are a single parent. So what about approaches to homeschooling? Where do we begin? How does this even happen? Well, I'm going to compare two things, and one of them I know that most of you are already very familiar with: school at home. So what many of you have been doing since the beginning of COVID is school at home. School at home is quite different from homeschooling, and I'm going to talk about some of the ways that it's different. This is a similarity. School at home students will meet the student learning outcomes that of the goals, the goals for the student who are in the program. Homeschooling students will also meet their student learning outcomes. The parent will teach well, and that student can meet those student learning outcomes. School at home students have school programs that have been created by teachers and by schools. And these programs will be given to the parent. So the parent is provided with material, they're provided with a schedule, they are given things, told what to do. And I think many of you are quite familiar with that after COVID. And you administer the program at home. I was just talking with a young mom yesterday, and she was telling me about her 4 school-age children whom she had to educate, and she got material from 4 different teachers for 4 different subjects for each of her students. And she was overwhelmed. She said, there is no way that I desire to do that again. That was so onerous and so difficult. And then you throw in the mix her 5th baby. She said, I never want to do that again. Homeschooling is different. In homeschooling, the programming is created by the parent to serve their child best in a home educating environment. The education resources are chosen by the parent. It's really parent-directed education. So what that means is that a parent can choose to develop a program that will work for all of their students. I'm just going to turn a light on here. In our province, it seems like it is not daytime. It is a thunderstorm and it is very dark. So excuse me for 1 second. There we go. So the parent creates the program. So let's imagine that you are doing a social studies program and you decide that you want to study China. You get books on China, you get materials on China, and you sit, the mom that I was speaking with yesterday would sit with her 5 children, not just 4, because she would include the little one as well, and she would read to them. They would do arts and crafts together. They might build a great wall of China out of paper mache. They would, but then they would each go and do their own level appropriate amount of work. So the older child may end up writing a report on some ancient Chinese like Ming vases or something. And then the middle one may end up writing a paragraph about some of the things that they had heard in the story that was read. The little one may take some copy work and write out a sentence so that they can practice their printing, they can practice their spelling, they can actually write it out. Meanwhile, little child number 5 is coloring while everyone is doing all of this. So you can really develop programming that is intense, that is significant, but that works for your whole student base, your whole family all at once. And that's really parent-directed education. That's homeschooling. In school at home, the focus is very curriculum driven. It is get stuff done. And I don't have to tell most of you about that. Get the work done, send it in. In homeschooling, the learning is really driven by the student's needs, by the student's abilities, and by your desires for your child. What are the goals that I hope to achieve? So let's imagine again that you are sitting at home and you are doing school at home and all 4 of your kids have different work that you're doing and things are blowing up. You have to get that work done to hand it in. Whereas in homeschooling, you're all sitting at the table, you're all working on similar projects so people can talk to each other about it, converse, discuss it. But when everyone's had enough, you can get up and walk away and take a break because you don't need to submit every detail of what you're doing back to the instructor because you are the instructor. One of the other great benefits is that in homeschooling, you can really focus on your child's strengths while building up their weaknesses gently. So instead of finding out what they're not good at and focusing so much on that, you figure out what they're good at. You build them, you help them grow, you help them to just become amazing at what they're good at. And then you also work on their weaknesses. But within them, you have now built their confidence in who they are. You've built their confidence in their skills. So those things that they are slightly weaker at, they now feel much more confident in approaching those things. The expectations on parents in school at home are quite onerous. There's little flexibility in program content, delivery, and timing. There are expectations for when you have things in, for the amount of work that you need to do. And there is a lot of reporting. From my perspective, it's excessive reporting that serves the school more than it serves the parent and the child. In homeschooling, there's great flexibility in content and delivery. You can be so flexible in what you're doing, when you're doing it. It's really a much gentler, kinder way to educate your children at home. In school, the goals are set by the teacher and the school for each subject. In homeschooling, the goals you are meeting are your goals for your children. And if you have family-specific needs, you have children who are excelling learners, you have children who are not excelling learners, well, you can adjust for that. And you never have to worry about your child not learning something till they're competent at it again, because you can spend as much or as little time as you need to develop proficiency in your child. You never have to worry that your child will not know their multiplication tables, because you can continue to work on them until they do. In school at home, there's often very little time remaining for extras, whereas in homeschooling, there is significant time. It requires much less time to complete the amount of work that is required at home than it does at school. I would guess that most homeschoolers are done their day near lunch, whether it be a regular lunch or just a slightly later lunch. Most homeschoolers have completed their work by then, and then they can work on the passions that they have. They can explore other things that they're really interested in, which really is another form of learning. They just have the time to do it now. And you will watch your children develop passions that you had no clue that they were in. Although now you may, after this summer, know more about the passions that your children have. Oops. So, how are you going to do this? That sounds, I'm hoping that sounds wonderful. Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter if it sounds wonderful to you. What's most important to me is that you are the parent of your children and that you will make good decisions for your kids. There are many parents who are sending their children back to school, and those are the right decisions and good decisions for those parents. There may be some parents here who decide to do school at home because maybe you're just not feeling confident enough, or you're feeling like you're just a little bit nervous. So you want to do that. There is nothing wrong with that. But there may be other parents who decide, I really want to jump into this homeschooling and do it the way you talked about, where my kids can flourish and those things that you've experienced. And that's right for that family as well. So you need to do what's right for your family. And I just encourage you to be strong because you have been given the authority to train up your child in the way that they will go. And then In doing that, they will not depart from it. That is your responsibility as a parent. So I'm going to talk a lot about the homeschooling decision, because if you decide to do school at home, everything will be provided for you. But if you're looking at homeschooling, then you need to figure out what to teach and how are you going to do this? What is this going to look like? Well, here at homeschooling.today, on the website, there are so many tools to help you to figure this out. If you go to the website, go to resources, there is a learning preference quiz. And in that quiz, there are a number of questions that you will complete. Do I want my child to be involved in choosing what we learn? Do I want to pick a theme? There is a significant number of questions. And when you're done answering all the questions, a recommended method of homeschooling will be suggested for you. What do I mean by that? What does that mean? Well, so that idea that I was talking about, where you study China and all of you are doing that together, that would be a unit study sort of approach, where everyone's together doing the same thing. And you look at a unit, you not only would you study the material, you would make Chinese food, you would look at dress, you would look at the art around China. You would take all of the subjects would be centered around China. So that would be a unit study sort of approach. You may be someone who is interested in a more classical approach to literature, where you know that memorizing is very important for your child, and you want to be able to develop those memorization skills. You want your child to be able to think about big pictures if they're in junior high. You want to be able to have lots of discussion, sort of a Socratic like dialogue with your child, and have really good conversations with them. Well, you may be interested in a classical approach to education. Or there's a very gentle Charlotte Mason way, where there's lots of copy work and arts and crafts and journaling, and that may be something that's good for your students if they like to write. So there are many, or there's simply delight-directed learning, where you say to your children, what do we want to study? And they say, well, I'm really interested in ancient Vikings. And you go, let's go, let's do it. Let's hop on the internet. Let's look at YouTube. Let's look at things. Let's start going. And that's more of a delight-based learning approach. So there's lots of ways for you to approach homeschooling. And the thing about it is, I want you to think about who you are and who your students are. Because you have to be able to teach it. So even if your child would like to do delight-based learning and you are a classical memorization kind of person, it's not going to work for your family. The method has to work for you. And then you can work with your student around it. So I want you to think about who you are and how you think you would like to approach things. And you don't have to think about it in terms of the titles, but just how would I like to learn? I encourage you to go to the website, take that learning preference quiz, try it out. It's really valuable. So in addition to how you teach, you'll also want to think about what you're teaching. What is going to be important to you? Is it important to you that your child excel in academics? They're at a point in their education now, maybe they're in late junior high, high school, and you want them to be able to get into a post-secondary institution. And academics are very important. maybe for your young children, it's very important for you to have a very solid academic focus. Well, then you will focus a lot on those academic subjects. Many families are very musical, and so music is an incredibly important component of their educating at home. So you can spend more time focusing on private music lessons, on discovering their passions around music, on private voice lessons. There are a lot of very musical home educators. My family is very sports oriented. So sports was always very important to us. So it was really important to us that we were able to incorporate sports into the things that we were doing. So those are things that you'll want to think about when you're programming. Another thing is your worldview perspective. How do you think about the world? What are the most important things to you in the world? What are those deciding factors that help you make decisions? Maybe it's your faith. Then you can teach from your worldview perspective. Maybe it's your perspective on ethics and morality. So you want to teach from your perspective on ethics and moralities. Those core decisions that are fundamental to you can help form, can help shape the way you're going to teach your students, the things you're going to teach them, and the way you're going to teach them. Character development is a very important part of homeschooling. Having good kids is something we all desire because it's going to benefit them, it's going to benefit us, it's going to benefit our whole society. So developing your child's character is a significant component of educating. So feel free to spend time putting the books away and just becoming a good person. Do service work. Have your kids learn how to serve others and have that be a component of what you do. And then, you know, the nitty gritty, the picking, well, which math curriculum am I going to use? Which science curriculum am I going to use? Well, we have a whole other workshop that I'm actually doing tomorrow night. If you're unable to come tomorrow night, please feel free to check it out online because we are recording these and we will have them available online on our website at homeschooling.today. And so more of the details on how to choose the specific curriculum will be in that workshop. Educational resources. What do you choose? Once you have picked out what you're going to study, where do you get your material? Again, homeschool.today has a list of places that sell educational resource materials. There's a listing of resources as well that are online for elementary school and high school students. There's listings of virtual field trips, which in today, those are going to be so significant. So a listing of virtual field trips, teaching resources, audio resources. I have to tell you about one resource that is available. If you choose to become a member of the affiliate of homeschool.today, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, then you will have access to a large digital library where you can listen to multitudes of good audiobooks. When I began homeschooling, I knew very little about literature. I had probably I could probably count the number of books, to be honest, that I had read as a child on one or two hands. As a child, I was read aloud to once. I had one read aloud book read to me. And so I was not familiar in any way with books, with good books. I had no idea how to choose a good book and what made a good book compared to what wasn't a good book. So having a digital library, HSLDA, homeschool.today, has done an extensive amount of work creating a library that is filled with very good books that your children and you can benefit from. So that's the HSLDA members resources. As well, if you would like to become a member of HSLDA, HSLDA also provides legal services to their members. So should you encounter a social worker who comes and is checking up on things and you don't think that things are going right, or if they're, if you think some of your family may not be happy about your decision, Homeschool Legal Defense Association was created to serve people, and they serve people on a membership basis. So you have access to their legal services as a member. In addition, there's fillable notification forms for your province. So if you're not sure how to do that, you can just fill it out. Information on homeschooling exceptional children's, HSLDA has a magazine, a Facebook page, so many resources, so many good resources that are available. And then we're also doing 2 more workshops that you may be interested in: choosing homeschool curriculum tomorrow night, and homeschooling junior high and high school youth on Thursday night. Same time as when you came in tonight. So that's the resources. We've jumped into a lot of stuff there. So getting back to our students and what we're going to do with them. How are you going to evaluate your students? What do you do for that? Well, the first thing we need to know is that the purpose of evaluation. What's the point of giving a kid a test? Why am I doing that? Well, the purpose is to serve you, the parent, so that you know where your child is. That's really the point. That's the point of report cards. That's the point of tests. It's so that you can know where your child is. So when you evaluate your child, you're figuring out where they are. And being a homeschool mom, I really do a lot of evaluation every day. I know where my kids are. So it actually, for us, required a very small amount of testing. There was very little testing that we needed to do. The testing is going to demonstrate the progress and identify levels of competence within your students. I would have done testing in math. So when my child did a unit and they were done a unit, they did a test, and I looked at it and went, hey, you're doing pretty good. Or, hey, well, let's work on some of those things. So that's the point, is so that you can help them to continue, grow, and learn. It's not to say you had 50%, so you passed. Let's move on and do something different. It's so that you can work to a level of competence and proficiency in whatever you are doing. Evaluation can also provide government officials information should they challenge where your student is or how they're growing, or if there's a legal challenge as well. So it's important to keep track of those things. Don't just do them and throw them away. Keep them. That's a part of records management. Keep all of that material. It also, when your child gets older, it shows what your child has done to help them to get into post-secondary institutions, so that a university, NAIT, a college, a polytech somewhere, those places will have evidence of the competence of your students, and they will be able to assess whether or not they would be willing to admit your child into their school. So there's a variety, like I said, of assessments and evaluation methods possible. Testing, I talked about unit tests here. You could do provincial achievement tests. Those will be available to you in most provinces, even as a home educated student. The Canadian test of, I think that's spelled wrong. It should be CTBS, I think. Canadian Test of Basic Skills. That tests where your child is on basic skills, and that's a Canadian evaluatory test. I have a friend who did that test. I think she did it every year with her kids. One, so they got, someone is writing on my page. Someone's writing on my page, that's interesting. So they had practice writing, writing tests. So you could do that. You can keep a portfolio of your students' work. It's always good to keep sample writing, writing samples of your students, and not just for post-secondary. Honestly, it was so beneficial to me to be able to compare my child's writing on this, at this time in our life, as compared to this time in our life. I had some learners who really had a lot of challenges with writing. And so to be able to see progress, even small bits of progress, was so beneficial for me as a parent. And it was incredibly beneficial for me to be able to encourage my students as well, to say, look how you've grown. Look at where you've come to. So keep those bits for yourself and for your learners, and for any officials you need to show, and for post-secondary. You can also journal, do quarterly reports. Yeah, quite a list of evaluations that you could participate in. And then in high school, if you have students in high school, you can take advantage of provincial exams as well, if that's something that you desire to have your student do. Diploma exams, departmental exams, whatever they're called in your province. You can take advantage of those. Record keeping is an important task that Homeschool Legal Defense Association, a part of homeschooling.today, would recommend for not just for posterity purposes, not just for keeping, but also in case of that challenge that we talked about. The record keeping serves you, again, by providing confidence in your student learning, serves the government agency by demonstrating the progress of your child, and then provides that evidence in case of a legal challenge. So you will want to keep records of what your student is doing. I'm going to show you just a sample of my records, because we're not talking huge amounts of work. This is a yearly planner that I purchased, and I purchased one for each of my children. And all of the records, except for test results and sample writings, are kept in here. So my children would document the things they did every day. I would have my program plan in here. I would write lists of the special things we did. I would have lists of pen pals. I would have everything that I needed in this book. And I have one of these for each of my children for every year that we homeschooled after I started doing this, because I figured this out late. So, but it's a beautiful, wonderful piece of record keeping. Wonderful way to do that. Keep dated samples of your student work, not just samples, but dated samples, so that you know when your child did these things. Again, these are the things that we talked about. Your program plan and your progress reports, keep those. Make sure you keep those. They are very useful for you. And then your daily scheduling. If you do daily scheduling, weekly scheduling, when I say daily scheduling, I don't mean every day you have to write a schedule, but I mean if you've written out what you've done every day, then just keep that. And that was the beauty of these daily planners, is that I would just have my kids write what they did that day, and it was as simple as math, science, reading. I mean, that's all they would write. Just those simple things for us to keep track of what they did each day. So you are going to have a lot of questions. And I encourage you to go to the homeschool.today frequently asked questions page. Here's a sample of some of the questions that are on the page. But you can scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll on this page. There is so much good information here that can assist you. Don't get overwhelmed. You can stop when you're tired. Stop, because you don't, overwhelming yourself isn't going to help you in this decision making. When you feel like you've hit an overload, then stop looking at stuff and just go from there. Further assistance. Being connected, for our family, being connected as home educators was a very important thing. We were connected to other homeschoolers. My kids had a small group of friends that they were close to and that they spent significant amounts of time with. And I don't mean every day, I don't mean every week, but I mean the time they spent was significant when they were with them. So they connected with other homeschoolers. For myself, as a home educating parent, it was so important for me to be able to connect with other homeschooling parents, to be able to share ideas, for me to be able to share successes, but most importantly, for me to be able to share my challenges and my really awful days. Because I don't want to paint a picture that you're going to be living in Never Never Land and it's going to be wonderful. You're going to have days that are challenging. You're going to have days that are difficult. One thing that I do want to encourage you, though, is when I have seen children removed from school and then start homeschooling, there is a de-schooling time. There is a time of significant adjustment. And that can be extremely challenging. The good news is that most of you have already done that. COVID has made it so that you guys have already done that. You're finished. So I don't have to tell any of you that those first few months are going to be challenging or sugarcoat it a little bit and say, yeah, it could be difficult. You've already lived it and you've done it. And now I can just encourage you that it really gets much better from here. So you have lived the most challenging part of pulling your child out of school already. So way to go, way to go. I never had to live that. You guys are way above me in being able to do that. So give yourself a huge pat on the back for doing that. Well done. So connect with a small group. Find a group in your area. Find other parents who homeschool. Connect with, talk to them, share. You know, it really takes one person. You just need to know one other person that you can connect with. I had one or two people who I connected with regularly, and then I had a larger group that we connected with monthly, and then we would connect for field trips and sports and things like that as well. Each province is also going to have a provincial association, so you can connect with your provincial association. And then Homeschool Today and Homeschool Legal Defense Association, we are here to advocate for you, to help you. That is our goal, that is our passion, that is what we do. So if you would like to become a member of Homeschool Legal Defense Association, we would love to have you as a member. And so you can click on that link. And then you have access to even, you know, more information than what's just shared on the website. In closing, so I just want to share with you some of the things that you can expect when homeschooling. I already talked about that deschooling, but the socialization benefits that I don't think I know of any family who hasn't experienced this. But the benefits of family connectedness, of families growing closer, of siblings growing closer, of families just growing together is great. So that is one of the biggest, most significant socialization benefits that you are going to find having made the choice to homeschool. You're likely to have kids who are more relaxed. Sometimes challenges, behavioral challenges that students have in school, they are reduced or even go away when families start to homeschool. If you had any students who were bullied or you know, found friendships difficult, many of them will really, really be blessed and be thankful for the choice that you've made to homeschool them. You will have really enriched, specialized learning times. They are learning at home is amazing. I have learned so much homeschooling my kids. Like I said, when I had no idea what a good book was, I now know a good book. And I'm one of those people who can list off books and authors. And it's from a love now of literature. It's from a love of what I have learned. And my children have developed that as well. And your children can develop that too. Life skills, oh my goodness, you get a chance to have them vacuum. Use it. Mothers, use it. Have your children vacuum. A cleaning schedule is a must for every homeschooling mom. Life skills are really important. Cooking, doing mechanics with dad, building something. These are really, really important things to learn. Your child will no longer be able to say they have no clue how to make macaroni and cheese. They will begin cooking you flambés. COVID, I gained so much weight in COVID because my 16-year-old cooked constantly. It's really, really a good thing. Your kids have more time to explore their interests and develop passions. My son did not cook, I can tell you that, but he became an amazing soccer player to the point where he won awards in college. They can just develop those passions My daughter had to make a choice if she was going to go to college or if she was going to pursue, she was very close to trying out for Olympic level swimming, synchronized swimming. So they can develop those passions. You can share your ideas, your values, and your beliefs with your children, and you can talk about those things. You know, the most interesting conversations are when you talk about these things and you have real discussions about important things that are going on in our world. So yeah, so that's what you can expect from homeschooling. And I hope you enjoy it. I really do. Like I said before, we have 2 more workshops coming up, one tomorrow night on choosing homeschool curriculum and one on Thursday night on homeschooling your junior high and high school age child. So that is it for the official part. I think we will take Q&As now. We'll do a question and answer time. So Peter will moderate that. I don't know if anyone has any questions, Peter.
Yep, we've got some questions for you, Patty.
Okay.
You can hear me all right, I take it?
Yes, I can.
Super. Okay. So the first question was just a request. You showed the portfolio during your presentation, but it was hard to see because the picture's small for most people. Could you hold that up again now that we've got you on the bigger screen and people can maybe get a better view of that? So that was the first request.
So is this what you're talking about?
Yes, that's right.
So this is nothing special. This is really just a daily planner that I bought at the local grocery store. This is 1 year's. This is another year's when the kids were little. I think that's, you know, like at one of the big bulk stores or something, you know, and here's another year, just a binder with loose leaf pages. It's really nothing special. It's what's in it that's the treasure.
Right. Okay, thanks, Patty. Okay, so we've got some great questions here, and I think we can get through most of them. So if you've asked a question, please stay with us because your question will likely come up. If there are 1 or 2 that we can't get to by, you know, within a reasonable amount of time, feel free to email us at homeschool.today. You can do that through the website. Ask your question. Just say I was on the seminar tonight and you didn't have time to get to my question, but I'd still like an answer, and we will make sure we get you an answer. So, so let's start at the top here. We had a great one here. This is actually not about the kids. This is about the parents. So somebody asked, what about parent self-care? What do you recommend in that regard? Because obviously homeschooling parents, they've got a lot on their plate and they can get worn out, right, Patty?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a huge question. I remember asking that of someone once, and I didn't actually like the answer that they gave me because I said, how do I get more time to myself? And they said, it's really hard. I'm not sure that you do. So what you do is you find times. You find times that become special. So instead of saying, I need me time, you say, I'm going to make a special time with one child. And you go for a walk with one child while the other one, you know, the other ones are looking after the other ones if you have little ones. Or supper. Honestly, I don't really, I didn't like to cook. When I was, you know, in my younger years of homeschooling, but I came to love it because we didn't watch much TV. We played a lot of board games. We didn't watch much. I would put the TV on for an hour, let my kids watch a video, and I would cook in peace. So you learn to just take nuggets of time. Uh, we would do a lot as a family. Um, this is going to sound really weird, and it's not actually applicable right now during COVID. But my husband and I took our kids to McDonald's a lot and let them play in the playroom, and him and I would talk. So we would have dates with our kids. So you need to be creative in how to have dates with your kids around. Maybe there's, certain hours where they have to be alone. So the self-care becomes something different than alone time. It's really picking nuggets of time for yourself and really learning to appreciate those, to be thankful for them. It was a mind thing for me. Once I realized that, I appreciated them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Patty.
Mhm.
Another question here. How do you help your homeschooling kids socialize and make strong social connections? So this one family has an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're thinking about homeschooling. But in talking to the children, the parents say that the kids are thinking that, or they're concerned that they wouldn't be able to connect with their friends. So this is a very I know this is a very common concern amongst a lot of families right now. A lot of kids are worried about this if they switch to homeschooling. What do you have to say about that, Patty?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is that your children are going to develop friendships at home like you never expected. So their relationships with their siblings is going to improve greatly. So they will, that's not to say they won't fight. Please don't get me wrong. But their relationship with their siblings will become much more significant. But they will want to be with other kids too. And so you just coordinate those things. We did homeschool activities. So I have always coordinated homeschool sports activities. You get together for baseball games. We would get together and I'm trying to adjust it with COVID now. I would always run a homeschool badminton and a homeschool volleyball time, and we'd get together and do those. But during COVID, you're going to have to be more creative. Maybe it's once a week walk with your friends, or part time. You just be intentional. You're just intentional, and you just do it. You make it a priority, and you schedule it in, and you do it.
Exactly. Okay. Now we've got a number of questions here, and I'm guessing parents are thinking about the future. They're thinking a year down the road. They're maybe seriously thinking about homeschooling now, but their concern is, if I want my kids to go back to public school, whether it's elementary school, junior high, high school, do I have to do anything special this year to make sure that they can get back in? What kind of challenges might they face in a year's time?
Yeah, I had that as one of the subjects. Sorry, I didn't touch on that. I had a note about that and I didn't. My apologies. You know what? When I showed you the results of education and how well those students work, how well they perform, your kids are going to perform extremely well. Now, are there going to be gaps in terms of not knowing the exact same things that everyone in school knows? Yep, they may not know the exact same facts that Johnny sitting next to them knows, but they'll know some other really interesting facts about some other subjects. So it really doesn't matter. Curriculum is often quite arbitrary. If you look at a curriculum in Alberta compared to Saskatchewan, compared to Ontario, compared to PEI, the grade 4 kids are not all studying the same material. So the point is to learn. And so it's kind of like just moving from out of province into a new province. When you go back, in terms of, yeah, my student learned a lot, maybe not the exact same, but they learned a lot. And so it typically teachers will say that students, their ability to learn is independently is much greater. Some of them will say, well, they don't know those facts. Well, yeah, they're right, but there's a lot of other things and a lot of other benefits. Very few teachers will say that a child is behind in learning as compared to behind in some of the facts that they missed.
Okay, thanks, Patty. And kind of in the same vein, there was a question or a couple of questions about deadlines for registering to homeschool this fall. And let's take that a step further. Can people decide to homeschool halfway through the public school year? Let's say things don't go so well in the public schools in a particular province. Can they start home educating in October, November, next January? What are the rules like for the most part?
Yeah, and I may get your input on that one just a
Okay,
tiny bit too, Peter.
sure.
So my understanding is that students can homeschool at any time. You're the parent, you can make those decisions for your child. So just like you have the right to move from Ontario to New Brunswick and move your child from one system of education to another, you have the right to pull your child out and home educate when it works for you. Now, Peter, do you know if there's any restrictions on that in provinces?
Typically, no, but what we would suggest is that if you are withdrawing a child partway through a school year, you want to make sure you know what the rules are, what the law says in that particular province, and as you've already recommended in other areas, HSLDA is a real benefit to people when they're making that move. So their lawyers can help you navigate that if there are any challenges to your decision. So but you're right, Patty. It is the right of the parent to decide what educational choices they're going to make for their children. So that's great. All right. We had a question about the let's see. Okay, so there's a few more that have just come in. So just quickly scanning them here. Let me
Well,
ask.
as you're, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that I want people to think about is that these are your kids and you are the authority in your child's life. And you're choosing not to relinquish that authority to someone else when you homeschool. It's not that you're taking them out, it's that you're choosing not to relinquish that authority to someone else.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, here's one. How much time is needed for teaching per day on average, and how many hours daily would you suggest? And I'm guessing that your answer is going to be different depending on the ages of the kids. But let's hear what you have to say about that, Patty.
Yeah, and I think most of our days when our children were younger, well, they're just fun, right? So you started your day when you got up and you had a fun breakfast and mom read while you were eating breakfast and we spent time reading, a lot of time reading. And then you do a little bit of work because they're little. So I think I've read somewhere that it takes 600 hours to learn all the material that's necessary from K to grade 6. So that's not very many hours. And so we were often done by lunch. Now, when you got into the junior high age, it may have been a little bit older. And I can tell you that when my child was doing physics this year, grade 12 physics, okay, she spent a lot of time. So she wasn't done till 3 o'clock, but let's be honest, she was in her room and I don't think she was doing physics the whole day. So it really is, I'd say by lunchtime, you can be done most of your formal stuff. And then, you can do fun learning things. You can do crafts, you can do music lessons, you can, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's been our experience as a family too. Okay, here's another one. Families talking about they've got kids of some different ages, and the youngest is harder to keep calm or interested in the lesson that they're doing with the older kids. What sort of strategy? I know you touched on this a little bit during your presentation, but maybe you could give us some more wisdom on dealing with those sorts of situations during your school day.
Yeah, sure. Well, and you would expect them not to be able to last as long as the older kids. So I think that's the number one thing. Don't expect them to last as long as the older kids. So they're going to go off, they're going to do stuff. And if they have some learning challenges, expect that of those children as well. They're going to have to shut down a little bit sooner. And so you just allow for it. Just really relish in what has been learned, and then move on. And especially if you have a reluctant learner, don't push for maximum productivity all the time. Productivity grows as they learn to love homeschooling. They will do more just because they like it. So we can relax with our kids, and our little kids, find things for them to do. Find busy boxes. You have a box. If you have really little kids, you have boxes of activities, stickers, crayons, whatever, that only come out during school time, so that you can keep those little kids busy while the older ones are doing stuff. They'll sit at the table for a few minutes and color, but then they've got to do something else. And it's okay. And it's okay if the big kids go and run and chase the little ones around for a while and then come back. It's just a dance. Homeschooling's like a dance. It doesn't have to be, rigid.
Right. Okay. I've got a few questions that deal with issues surrounding language. I've got everything from we have a child who's currently in French immersion, but we as a family don't speak French. Can we continue with that at home? And that's a specific one. There are a couple of others that have to do with, hey, we're not English as a first language, but we'd like to teach English as a first language, English. We'd like to do our homeschooling in English. There was one other here. And actually, I'll answer this part because it's sort of a question I've had from a couple of people. Is there a French equivalent to the homeschool.today website? And unfortunately, there isn't just yet. We are looking at that, and we hope to offer that service in the future, but we're not quite there yet. So for those who are wondering about that or who asked that question, I'll answer that one. But back to the language questions, Patty, I'm not sure if you did tackle second languages, or if you have some advice on either of those questions. They're not easy questions, and if we can't answer them here tonight, I'm going to ask those folks, if they wouldn't mind, just go on homeschool.today and send their question in again, and we'll make sure we get an answer for them. But you might have some answers for us tonight. So,
well, I mean, we've touched on second languages. We live somewhere where we had to learn, Spanish. So we did a little bit of Spanish, and there are lots of programs that you can do, lots of fun apps that you can get to learn second languages and to explore and grow and become strong in second languages. I mean, to the point of immersion, I really don't have expertise in that. I think it may be challenging to do that. I'm not sure how you would teach a child in a language that you don't know. I think that would be really challenging. But you can certainly expose your child to a lot of languages, I know a lot of kids who did a lot of language, from Latin to Spanish to German to, Chinese. They did a lot. But I honestly don't know of anyone who was able to do immersion if they didn't speak the language already.
right. Yeah, I would agree with you. That would be very challenging. I'll add another thought on language. I'm aware of some services that are available now where, and they're quite inexpensive, which is a benefit for home educators, where students can be tutored online in a foreign language by somebody in a country that where that is the native language. Like, so for instance, Spanish. there's a company that operates out of Guatemala, and so there's some teachers in Guatemala who will Zoom with your child and do a 45-minute lesson, daily or weekly or whatever the case may be. And this is a highly effective way to learn Spanish, for example. So those sorts of services are available now, and that's another option to think about for people who are interested in learning languages. Okay, I got another question here. This is kind of a fun one. What if my child finishes their grade in less than a year? What if they've done all their subjects well before June, let's say? Does the child take a break to the next school year, or can I start right away? How do you handle that sort of situation, Patty? And maybe I could give
Oh,
you
well,
a
that's
question, which is my child isn't finished by June. They're still struggling with their math. What do I do?
okay. So that's the beauty of homeschooling. And if you do it for a year, that is fantastic. If you do it for a longer than a year, then, you actually forget and don't even know what grades your kids are in at some point. We're doing this level math, we're doing this level science, we're doing this level history. It just becomes wherever your child is. And I found that we were often done very early in the spring, and we usually started much later than anyone else did, later in the fall. However, I didn't do science in the winter because I found summer to be a spectacular time for science, because you can do so many interesting things outside. So while we weren't officially, I don't even know if you'd call it officially or unofficially, while we weren't doing school, we would be doing experiments outside, and we would be studying things outside. And so education just kind of happens when you're a home educating family. The book work, may be put away, but you're learning. And did I have kids who didn't complete books? Oh yeah, and sometimes they honestly didn't complete it because they didn't get it, and I'd put it away, and in the fall we'd just start where they left off and just go from there. So even if they didn't finish the grade level, we'd work, because you work to proficiency, not to some arbitrary date that someone says your child should be finished at.
Excellent. Okay, so I've got two last questions tonight that are bigger ones. The first one I'm going to answer myself, just because we've had several people ask it. I've answered some of them in the chat, and but it's so common. I'll just mention it again. The question is about the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA. How do I join? So I had several people ask me that. And the best way is to just go to the website, hslda.ca, and you can see all the options for membership there. They have monthly memberships, annual memberships, or lifetime memberships for those who are really committed. So check out HSLDA if you're interested in things like the digital library and extra advice on top of what you're getting tonight, and so on. Okay, so the final question tonight, Patty, is just around post-secondary. Had a question about universities, and the question was really, how hard is it to get into university? Are universities accepting of homeschoolers? What do my prospects look like if my child is homeschooled right the way through? Are they going to get in? Are they at a disadvantage? Are they at an advantage? What's the scene like out there right now with universities and colleges across the country?
Yeah, university and colleges have really recognized the significant learning in students who are home educated, and lots of them will have created specialized home education policies for students who have not done provincial diploma exams or whatever you call them in your province. So they've created special ways for students to get into universities. Many parents will decide that in their grade 12 year, they just want to have their student write those exams. So they will teach their child to a level where they're able to to competently challenge those exams, and then they'll get in. One of the best kept secrets is that I don't know of any post-secondary institution that requires a high school diploma to get in. They will require certain courses, but never have I seen a high school diploma. So depending on the program that your student wants, you just work so that they can learn the material that's required and then apply. We didn't do provincial exams, and we have degrees in arts, 2 polytech diplomas, a nursing diploma, a ministry diploma, and our youngest took courses in university when she was in high school. So open studies.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for tonight, but let's conclude just by reminding people that we've got 2 more seminars this week. Tomorrow, Patty's going to be talking about choosing curriculum. So this is where we really dive into how making your homeschooling come alive with specifics. And so we're going to be excited to hear about all the choices there are, and there are a lot of choices, aren't there, Patty? So it's this is a seminar you're not going to want to miss if you're planning to home educate this fall. And then for those that are have kids that are a little bit older and they're unsure about the junior high and the high school years and how to tackle those, and they are a little bit different for sure. There's some different strategies there. We're gonna tackle that on Thursday. So it's the same time for both seminars. And if you got this notice, you undoubtedly got the notice about the other 2. And we'll look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow and Thursday. Well, Patty, thanks so much for your wise advice this evening and sharing your knowledge with us. And we'll sign off here and see everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.